in Australia. And I'm hoping that everyone can hear me now. I have some slides to present today as well, and I believe that they will come up sometime soon into the presentation here. So it's great to see. I was listening to the introduction. It was really fantastic. Congratulations to Lepang and and Brian and all of the people involved in presenting these today. Okay, I'm just going to share the slides again so we can start when we're ready. There we go. Excellent. Thanks to Brian for your help, and welcome to all of the people who are here today. I can see some comments that will come up, so if there's any questions or anything you'd like to ask me, then please go ahead. I will occasionally check to see that everything's coming through. So it's my pleasure to be with you today and to welcome you to this presentation where I'm going to share a little bit about business and government. And because I'm here in Australia, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm meeting and pay my respect to the elders past, present, and extend that to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening today. What I'm going to do is first of all introduce the seminar and then answer the question, why was it advantageous to you to study business, and why in Australia as an option? And we'll throughout this seminar, I'll discuss opportunities in Africa that I see, and also the opportunities in Australia. I've had fairly extensive experience in Africa over the years. Some of my research includes Africa, so I will mention some of those things as I go along. I will also discuss some of the opportunities in the changing economy. We know that today everything is changing. The COVID and post-COVID world that we're living in presents a lot of opportunities, and I'll discuss some of those. And then we'll talk about how industries are changing and some of the opportunities in the dynamic and changing industries that exist today. And then I'll talk about how you can incubate ideas and how you can find work and employment opportunities in this whole mix. And at the end, I'll discuss some of the scholarships that are available at Griffith and maybe talk about some of the processes and applying as you like. So that's me. I'm currently, I was Director International of the Business School for 8 years, and that took me to Africa very often, particularly to Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Ghana, Ethiopia, different places. I've won a few teaching awards, and I've also involved in co-author of a number of management textbooks. And I'll just introduce a part of one of the textbooks today when we discuss entrepreneurship. I have won some awards for my research, and I do speak Indonesian and Chinese, and part of my expertise is in teaching the multicultural classroom, but also Chinese investment in Africa is one of the areas of interest that I have. So why should you study business, and why in Australia? What are some of the opportunities in Australia? Well, first of all, the economy is in the stage, the world economy is in the stage of resetting in terms of globalization. And that means that what we've experienced through the COVID-19 situation over the last couple of years, and now even in the war in the Ukraine, is that what's happened is that there are a lot of labour market shortages in a number of countries, including Australia. There simply is not enough workers to do the work in many countries. And this is resulting in many businesses slowing down and suffering some changes. And also the global supply chain that we came to rely on. So for example, the grain that came from the Ukraine has been disrupted. And that means opportunities for various countries and young people who are looking to study today. So because we grew used to globalization, and globalization was particularly focused on getting the best workers and the cheapest prices and the best products from around the world, that's now changed because we've realized that those transportation networks and the flow of people and goods and services is sometimes not as straightforward as we would have hoped. And therefore, there's changes in the economy. Why is Australia one of the opportunities? Well, Australia is one of the world's most resilient economies. It's not growing as fast as many of the lesser developed economies, but it has been resilient. And in fact, the economy has bounced back from the period of economic recession that occurred last year. Another reason to study business is that there are a reality in the world today is that many old industries are on the decline. And that means that some of those jobs that used to go with those industries are less and less available. But the good news is that there are new industries emerging, and we'll discuss some of those today. For example, renewable energy is growing around the world, and that creates demand for certain products, but it also means looking towards more electronic vehicles, and we're looking towards different sources of energy rather than the traditional oil, gas, coal, etc. Those industries are still there, but they have a limited lifespan. Industries in terms of artificial intelligence are increasing tremendously, and there are many opportunities there as well. Of course, healthcare has increased during the pandemic, but it's also increasing in some countries because of the aging population. And as the introduction mentioned, Africa is blessed with a younger population that doesn't have necessarily those issues. But in terms of producing graduates who can work in this healthcare area, healthcare is emerging as a growing industry. Mental health, we spend more of our time online, we spend more of our time isolated from people, and mental health issues have come to the forefront, and there is a growing need for industries to address the mental health needs. And of course, biotechnology. So business, if we look at studying business, business turns these innovations in these areas into business success. And eventually we do need more than just money. We need ideas that will turn into success. I see Hazel's mentioned that she's listening. Great. Welcome, Hazel. And then the job market is changing as well. And so new skills are needed. And this is where, for young people in particular, new skills can be developed because many people are still in their training stage of their career. And also new career strategies, how to get ahead, are needed. It's no longer enough just to get a degree. You have to have a whole career strategy as to show how to get ahead in this new world. And business is at the forefront of these new skills and can teach you the strategies as how to get ahead as well. And although the cost of study is high, particularly in Australia, scholarships for students do make it more affordable, and many Australian universities and education providers are providing more scholarships where they didn't in the past. So let's talk a little bit more about the economy. So what I hope to do is just give you a picture of opportunities, and then discuss more specifics as we go along. So first of all, economic growth in Africa is a three-stage, we call it a three-trajectory trichotomy, you could say. So there are some countries where growth is 6% or more, as represented by the dark shaded green areas, then 3 to 6% by the light green, and orange, there are some countries that went back. This is in 2020, and 2021, and partly into this year as well. But the reality is that economic growth in Africa is often a lot stronger than many countries in the, many continents, the countries of Africa. Economic growth is a lot stronger in many of the countries of Africa compared to the rest of the world. And you may have heard of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, signed in 2019, and Botswana is one of the signatories, and there are many countries, most of the countries throughout Africa are signatories to this, which does offer great opportunities for lower intracontinental tariffs and leads to greater intracontinental trade. The ironic economic fact is that most of the trade from Africa goes outside of the continent rather than inside the continent. And one of the reasons for that has been a lack of, or the presence of tariffs and, of course, infrastructure and transportation restrictions as well. So the introduction of this Africa continental free trade area is going to create many opportunities for the growth of industries in a number of African countries. And as I mentioned before, the global supply chain has failed in recent times. And that means that there are many more domestic industries that are taking off, whereas we used to rely on overseas to take a lot of our food and a lot of our goods. We're realizing that we do need to keep healthy home industries in order to buffer and overcome the effects of these global supply chain disruptions. Welcome also to Silda, who's listening as well. And of course, there are particular minerals and resources that are abundant in Africa that are in high global demand. So in particular, the minerals, the rare earth minerals, and other such as cobalt, these minerals are abundant in a number of different African countries, and these are what are required in this new renewable energy economy. In the end, eventually, many of these minerals will, of course, be more in demand than oil and gas. And we all know what happened in the Middle East when oil became, the pricing in oil became more controlled. It led to the development of the oil industry in many countries and led to those countries becoming quite wealthy also. And another aspect is that in terms of fintech, and you probably all know M-Pesa and other innovations, Africa, a number of African countries lead the world in terms of fintech development and innovation. So these opportunities are created not just for industries within the continent, but also international opportunities as well. And finally, in terms of the development of infrastructure, there are many needs in the continent, and this leads to when there is sufficient investment, both international and domestic investment is picking up in particular in the continent. This leads to a lot of opportunities for jobs and for career development. Some of the major projects in terms of infrastructure at the moment, you may have heard of many of these corridors, some of which have been proposed for a long time, but are eventually coming to fruition. So one of the major problems has been that there hasn't been sufficient roads, rail, ports, airports, in order to take advantage of the economic opportunities in the continent. So these are a number of those projects that are available, that are coming online and are being developed slowly at the moment. And there are many ports that are under development, new ports, expanded ports, which makes for greater international trade and also makes for greater intracontinental trade as ships move from one part of the continent to another. And also many of the new and expanded airports. Over the years, I've been traveling to various African countries. I've seen many of the airports come online, and each one seems to be bigger and better than the last one that was there before. So I'm in the state of Queensland, and just to point out, I'm in the Gold Coast, and Griffith University is located in Brisbane at the Gold Coast. And Queensland has been a fast-growing economy. If you call 3% fast in Australia and many OECD countries, we regard that as relatively fast. Its economy has been growing quite strongly over the past few years. So let's talk about some of the industries that are developing and what the opportunities are there. So these are the industries that have particularly been developing, and this is the result of both actual investment and the opinions of many of the experts in this area who are saying these are the industries that are developing in Africa at the moment. First of all, in terms of infrastructure, so roads, ports, airports, and of course the kind of jobs that are needed for that include engineers, include business managers, include human resource managers to manage the projects. Unfortunately, some of the international investment has used the human resources from other countries, whereas there are many employment needs in the continent, in the African continent. So this kind of process needs to be well managed so that the opportunities are provided for local people. Oil and gas, although oil and gas as an industry may decline, in fact, at the moment, it is increasing in many countries. And that's also because some of the normal gas providers, for example, in Russia, have been cut off due to sanctions, and oil, there are many more oil deposits that are being discovered and are being developed. So, for example, in Ghana, oil is a growing industry and is developing. Financial services is that industry, and we'll come back to this a number of times, but you may be aware that there are a number of countries in the continent that don't have stock exchanges, and these are being developed. And as stock exchanges develop, it provides more opportunity for public investment to develop the industries of those countries. But as I mentioned, financial technology and banking systems are developing on the continent. I have a PhD student from Kenya who is currently, or two PhD students who are looking at this in their research, and particularly in the EAC, the East African Community. Information and telecom industries, of course, are growing rapidly. One of the highest rates of cell phone ownership is on the continent. And it's in a number of countries in the continent. And although people may not actually have computers themselves, they do have access to smartphones. And the smartphone penetration is fairly high in many countries. Consumer products, of course, are developing as the middle class in a country develops. So the demand for consumer products go up. One thing that people often overlook is the development of hotel and tourism. And although this took a large drop during the pandemic, it's picking up dramatically now. And in Australia at the moment, we have airports that are clogged and services that are oversubscribed by demand and not enough people to do the jobs. But tourism and as an industry has been growing at around, except for the pandemic, it's been growing at around 6% per year, and it is expected to rebound dramatically. One of the sad things is that if you don't develop that tourism industry yourself, then overseas investors will come in and will take advantage of those opportunities, which is a shame. So this is something that needs to be developed in many countries. And of course, renewable and alternative energy are developing, and construction is one of the larger areas. Hazel asked, could the presentation be sent? Yes, that will be sent, I believe. I've sent the presentation to the organisers, so hopefully they'll be able to follow up with that, but I can send it if it doesn't arrive. Welcome also to our next participant as well, Tamelo. You can see in that little graph at the top there that the service industry is been expanding quite rapidly. These are 2019 compared to 2011. Agriculture is on the decline in terms of employment opportunities, but industry and the service economy are developing quite dramatically. Welcome also to Sinekwe. And in the state of Queensland, where I am, these are the four top industries. The first is, of course, financial and professional services. This is, as I mentioned, one of the major areas of development. So if you want to look for a career that has a great development trajectory at the moment, then finance is one of those areas. Secondly, mining and resources, as there are a number of countries in the continent, of course, where mining has been a strong developer, it's been developed strongly. In Queensland as well, where I am, it's one of our major industries. Construction, although this is slowing down a little bit with inflation, but construction is a major industry, and tourism. So if you're looking for industries where that are developing and where you can get work, these are four of the big ones in Queensland. And indeed, most of this is similar throughout Australia. Welcome also to Medice. Now, talking about employment opportunities. So we talked about economy areas of development. We talked about industries that are developing. Now let's talk about where the jobs are. So these are the things that employers are looking for. And recently we did this research in our business school where we looked at, asked employers what they're looking for. And we also incorporated the research from around the world as what employers are looking for. And these are the things that come up again and again. First of all, they're looking for workers who are adaptable. And if you have the opportunity to study overseas or study in an environment that is not quite familiar to you, that is a sign of your adaptability. So consider that. And if you've grown up in an environment where you had to adapt in many situations, it also assists you as well. So adaptability is one of those major things that employers are looking for. And that's because industries are changing so much that they're looking for people who can change with the changes in the environment. So you may have to move from being someone who's looking after areas of human resource management to you may need to work more on communication. So there needs to be that adaptability in your skills that you use in industry. And the second is always comes up is your ability to communicate. So that means your ability to negotiate, the ability to present well, the ability to write well, the ability to communicate well in team meetings. And this has always been something that's at the top of the requirement from employers. The third is to be able to function in interdisciplinary teams. So if you're interested in engineering, you've got to learn how to communicate with the architects, you've got to learn to communicate with the finance people and to understand the different professions and to be able to work together in a team. And as a professor, I often find that students are not happy when they have to work in groups, but that's the reality of the workplace. Employers are asking us if we can prepare graduates who can work together in interdisciplinary teams. And this is a continual one. Employers are looking for people who have analytical skills, who can look at a set of data and draw reasonable conclusions, and who can bring together different opinions and come up with a reasonable analysis, and those who can be creative in their thinking. So if your degree isn't developing your creativity, and if your study plan is not helping you to analyze data, analyze information from different sources, then you won't be well equipped for the future of work. A forward-thinking mindset. So you're obviously listening here today as we're talking about how things are developing into the future. This is required when you work in business today or work in the workforce generally. And of course, employers are looking for people who have innovative new ideas. That's the way businesses compete today, is by developing new innovations, new products, new services to compete with others. And intrapreneurialism means that you can develop ideas within an organization, not necessarily go off and start your own business, although that's something we'll discuss later. The whole sustainable development goals are extremely important today, and employers are looking for people who are socially responsible, not just responsible within the business, but have a greater environmental awareness and awareness of the needs for renewables, etc. These are some of the key characteristics that employers are looking for. And those who have an open-minded global perspective. Many businesses have some kind of global operations today, and employers are looking for people who have that kind of open-minded global perspective. Okay. So this is just some of the linking some of the majors in business degrees with career opportunities. So these are all ones that we offer at Griffith, but many other business schools offer them as well. So just to pick out a few, someone who can manage events. Events, of course, are important once again. We're out from behind our computers and back into the community in many cases. Finance, I've mentioned before, but then logistics and supply chain management, of course, that's a growing industry around the world. Even sport management. I think you probably know that here in Southeast Queensland and Brisbane and the Gold Coast, we have the Olympic Games in 2032. But the business of sport is huge around the world. So that's just some of those careers. And in the notes, the slides later, you can see some of those details. So where is the money? Where can you earn the most money? And healthcare has been left out of this, but healthcare falls under professional and technical, scientific and technical services. But where salaries are best are actually in the financial and insurance services industries. Of course, within healthcare, medicine and dentistry, of course, are the higher paid jobs, but there are many other jobs, nursing and allied health professionals, that are paid similar to professional and technical services. But financial and insurance services, as it's been mentioned, as a growing industry. It's been mentioned now also as an area where the higher wages are being paid. So if you're looking for something that's going to pay well, then consider studying this area. Training and education also pays well, at least this is in Australia. Public administration. Public administration has been a bit of a safety, a bit of a refuge for people who are looking for more steady income, because today there are more and more jobs that are either contracted or in the gig economy, and it's harder to get those steady jobs today. That's just a reality around the world. And you'd be interested to see also recreation and art services, for example, including sports management, is a highly paid area as well. So this just gives you, this is some up-to-date information for just the past month. You can see the past month and past fortnight, but more importantly on the right-hand column, as you look down, you can see where the payroll jobs are increasing in particular. So mining is going up. This is, of course, in Australia. Information, media, telecommunications is going up. Financial insurance services is going up. And then the big one there is actually arts and recreation services that are going up as well. But some of them are going backwards. So manufacturing is going back a little bit. Construction is going back. That's just particular to the Australian economy at the moment. And accommodation and food services are going backwards. So these are some of the changes over the past year. But you can obtain this information and to see where things are changing in the economy overall. Okay, so we're going to talk now about incubating ideas, how you can develop your ideas and make money from them. So this is from some of the writing that I've done before, textbook writing. An entrepreneur, we know, is someone who creates a new enterprise, opportunity, or business venture. So you need some kind of business skills to be an entrepreneur. Intrapreneur, I mentioned this before, someone who develops ideas within an existing company. A social entrepreneur, and this has become particularly popular and an area that we've developed some expertise in, is a person who runs a social enterprise. So having primarily social objectives, and the profits that you produce are reinvested into the business or into the greater purpose of the business, into the community. This has become very popular with younger people in particular. And another concept is the idea of a business incubator, a program that offers you space, shared services and advice to help small businesses get started. So how can universities assist? Well, innovation competitions where the prize money can be seed funding towards developing your idea. That's something we do run at Griffith University, and the prize is about $10,000 for students who enter these competitions. And many universities offer this, but we're trying to find those ideas that might be able to develop successfully as businesses. Train people in terms of entrepreneurship, how to start a small business, etc. We have a centre called the Muhammad Yunus Social Enterprise Centre. Muhammad Yunus, of course, was the Nobel Prize winner in economics some years ago from Bangladesh, who started up the micro-banking system. And we have a social enterprise centre named after him at the university. So many places you can get training in terms of being an entrepreneur, to get mentors, to get people who will help you along the way to develop your businesses. And we also offer opportunities in terms of internships, where you can get experience with startups to see how other people do it, so that you can then start up your own business in the future. And then incubators often develop ideas and prototypes, as well as providing the opportunity for you to develop your ideas in a joint environment. We have that at the university as well. So these are some of the ways that universities can help you to develop your ideas. Nowadays, many of our graduates, around 50%, hope to start a business in the few years after they graduate. It's a reasonable goal and something that needs to be encouraged for students. So for many of you listening, if you are a young person born after 1995, you are in what's called Generation Z. And there are some things that are of great advantage to you in terms of doing business. One of them is that, of course, people look at their smartphones more than they look at television. Well, I probably do that as well, but this is something that many people of the younger generation realize, is that the business, a lot of future is in your smartphone. And social media is not seen as broadcasting platform, it's seen as developing a community with its pluses and minuses. And Gen Z understands these differences. And people, if Gen Z are truly want to change the world. That's why social entrepreneurship is so popular, and the sustainable development goals are so popular amongst people of Gen Z. And they want to walk the walk, looking for genuine change, not just superficial change and ideas that are discussed and not implemented. So something to think about in terms of developing your ideas, developing your business, is that there is that birth stage, first of all, where you are fighting for existence and survival. You've got to get the cash flow going. You've got to get your structure in place. There's a spelling mistake in organization. But getting customers, finding the money, all of those things in the early birth stage. But then you've got to develop that breakthrough stage, where you usually have more demand than supply. And you need to develop the structures in terms of becoming profitable, of growing, and coping with growth and taking off. So, and then finally that maturity stage, where your strategy is refining and you are developing, continuing to develop your growth and managing for success. So all of these stages, a business degree, studying business, will help you to manage these successfully. Finally, I'll talk about scholarships. So at Griffith University, not just the business school, but at the university, we have the Griffith Remarkable Scholarships, which provides 50% off your degree and throughout your degree. And as long as you had a grade point average of 5.5 out of 7, then you can apply for this. However, most people who get the scholarship have a grade point average of 6 out of 7. So you can do the maths and work out if you have a different system. It's basically those who have a high school leavers, those who have the A's and A stars. But I've sat on the panel for this scholarship for many years. We ask for a personal statement as well for students who are looking for this scholarship. And the personal statement covers your reasons for wanting to develop wanting the scholarship. And we're looking for those who have a broader community interest, not just for their own business, their own career needs. Good news is the International Student Excellence Scholarship, if you have a grade point average of around 5.5 out of 7, and you can maintain that, then you can obtain 25% off your fees. That can be quite substantial, and we have a lot of students who are on this scholarship. And then the International Student Merit Scholarship, which is 25% off your fees throughout the course of your degree, and you need to maintain a grade point average of 5 out of 7. There are smaller scholarships for for school leavers, and the second last one, the International Student Postgraduate Scholarship, is no longer offered. And if you apply as a family member, you can obtain some discount as well. The 100% scholarships are all in the PhD area. So if there's anyone interested in PhD, then please contact me. We have both tuition and the living stipend scholarships for those who are interested in doing their PhD. If you already have the qualifying mark in terms of your master's, or if you have a honours, first-class honours bachelor's degree. I think my time might be about up. Any questions? The chat questions are there. So if you would like to ask me anything. Oh yes, Brian says, please go on up till after 10 a.m. So I've got at least 10 minutes more. So if anyone would like to ask questions, I'll be happy to answer them now. I can explain a little bit more about scholarships. Oh yes, Lone has asked a question. Looking to do an architectural course in the UK. So I was wondering if you brief me on what courses subject one has to do for that. Okay, I'd probably just be speculating here, but I have looked at some of the programs. Normally, if you're doing architecture, you do need to have a portfolio, as well as a, depending if you're entering from the basics as a design onto architecture. But because I'm in Australia and because that's not my field, I may not be able to give you great advice. But if you are someone who is interested in that field, then I'd encourage you to continue to develop your portfolio in terms of your ideas, your drawings, your photos, all of those things which can be part of an application process. However, normally the kind of courses you need to do is you need to have some of those basic those maths courses in order to design buildings that, of course, will withstand various pressures, etc. So that's probably all I can offer in terms of architecture. I can say that from our own architecture courses here, that we do require maths and English, and we also require a portfolio. Any other questions people may have? Okay, while I'm waiting for the questions, let me address a little bit more about scholarships. When you apply for a scholarship, and indeed in many cases when you apply for your visa, you do need a personal statement. And the personal statements that that we look for are your reasons for wanting to study, something about your background, something about your interest in the field, and why you want to study in that particular country. So I've given you some reasons here as to why you may want to study business in Australia, but if you want to study in UK, in Germany, etc., you do need to have some knowledge of the business opportunities and economies, economic opportunities in those countries, and why you would do it overseas rather than at home. But also what we are looking for is something in your background, something in your motivations that indicate that you would like to use what you gain from your study, how you will use that to better the community. So if you mention the Sustainable Development Goals, that's particularly, that'll give you some points. If you mention the needs in your country, then that will give you some points as well. And if you mention what you have done in your extracurricular activities in order to assist the community, that will also give you some points. These are the sort of things that we look for when we're assessing personal statements that accompany scholarship applications. A lot of people mention their family background, which is relevant, but sometimes people say, well, you know, everyone in my family has been on this particular profession and I would like to join it as well. That's not something particularly strong because the question comes, well, if your family is already helping you in that area, why would you need a scholarship to lead to the next stage? And you've got to set yourself apart from other students because there are many students who would like to obtain the scholarship and good marks are very important, but it's also what you're going to do with the qualification to better society and not just yourself. That's some of the reasons as to why we give a scholarship. So at some points. I'll just wait for any other questions. Any other industries that people are interested that would like to ask, they'd like to ask me about? More requirements. Yep, the scholarship, age restrictions, work experience, etc. Yes. So age restrictions usually apply particularly for the visa. Now, the visa can be another aspect of international study. If you, for example, in you're applying for a visa, and let's say you already have a business degree, and then you're applying for a study to do a master MBA, there may be some question, well, why does the student need this particular degree? And sometimes we have students who are already working as nurses who want to apply for a scholarship or a visa to study nursing. And we say, well, why do you need that? And so the various governments will often ask those questions. Why do you need to study abroad to obtain these, when these opportunities are already at home and you're already taking advantage of those opportunities? So you need to be able to answer those questions as to why you chose a particular country, why you chose a particular degree, and if you are older, then you may need to explain why you haven't been able to study this degree beforehand. And I have seen many cases of students being successful, even though they may be in their middle ages. They've been successful in scholarships, they've been successful in visas, because they've been able to explain where there's been gaps in their study or their research. For example, they've served in the military, or for example, they have been raising a family and they haven't had the opportunity to study up until this point. But so far as PhD age requirements, there's usually not any age restriction. I've supervised some people in PhDs who are international students who have been in their 60s and they're still working as after they've graduated. But in other bachelor's degrees, normally you would be under 30. Postgraduate degrees, you'd probably normally be under 40. And work experience, it's not necessarily required when you're studying for postgraduate. There are some degrees that require work experience. So in particular, the MBA, the Masters of Business Administration, usually requires some work experience and supervisory experience to enter the program. Work experience can help you if you are applying, if you don't have the relevant undergraduate degree and you're applying for a postgraduate degree. So let's say, for example, your first degree was in languages, but you're working in a bank. You may be able to apply, use that work experience from the bank to apply for a Master of Finance degree. Yeah. Okay. So work experience really depends. It's really only relevant if you're doing a postgraduate degree and if you're doing a Master of Business Administration. Tiarana asks, how hard is it to get these scholarships? Well, the 50% scholarship is there's only a few offered each trimester in each discipline. In each of we have 4 major areas, 4 faculties. So it depends. Some trimesters we have about 50 applicants and we only select 2 or 3. So they are more limited. In some occasions we only have 20 applicants and we're offering 2 or 3. So you have about a 10% chance. For the other scholarships, the 25% and 20% scholarships, they are offered, there's no limit to how many we offer. So if you have the marks, you'll get the scholarship. And so it's not particularly hard. And in fact, the limitation for those scholarships are not particularly high, in that that's a grade point average of 5.5 out of 7. That's means that you've achieved a credit to distinction type level, and certainly the 5 out of 7 for the 20% scholarship is also achievable. For PhD scholarships, it is competitive, but really you've got probably a 1 in 4 chance of getting it, because the entry standards for PhD are quite high. So you need the marks, but you also, in the PhD, you also need a good research proposal. And there are sometimes, it's sometimes more difficult to get the scholarships if they're organised by trimester. In the first trimester, when a lot of people are applying, whereas in the third trimester, there's often less people applying. So the third trimester is usually, for us, is from November. We find that we have more opportunities for students, and I've sometimes seen only about 10 students applying, and we've got 2 or 3 to give, so you have a very high chance of getting that 50% scholarship. It varies from year to year and trimester to trimester or semester to semester. So if you're interested, it's always a good idea to apply if you meet the basic standards. And writing your personal statement is writing a good personal statement is key. I would say of the scholarship applications that I've reviewed, probably only 1 in 4 would write a good personal statement. It means that they have ticked all those boxes that I mentioned in terms of how they'll use their degree for greater social benefit, and that they have actually looked into the program that they're applying for. What I often find is that students just do it often a mass kind of scholarship application way, and they haven't really looked at the particular program or particular school, and so it's very obvious that they haven't made the effort to look into the individual situation, and so they don't do particularly well in the application process. Okay, so I've probably gone to time now, and I think it's probably time for me to finish. Brian, you might be able to just mention, should I stop at this point or keep answering questions, or should I finish? Please finish. Okay, great. All right, thanks very much, everyone. It's been my pleasure to be with you today, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavours, and I hope that I might see some of you one day at Griffith University in Queensland, Australia. Thanks, everyone, and bye for now.